There we go. Good morning, Chair, Planning Board members, members of the public. I do have a couple of announcements. One that's probably the most relevant to this group is you'll remember back in April, for approximately 5.5 months, we studied some short-term rental regulation. April, we held, after a series of listening sessions, work sessions, we held a public hearing. The vote was basically, in essence, to table the matter. The way the bylaws are written are a little wonky. That says for a period of 100 days. However, new developments have come to light. You don't have to look far to find them. You just pick up a paper, watch WLOS. The commissioners have decided to form an ad hoc short-term rental committee. Basically, the way this group will work is it'll take all of the work that we have done here as staff and planning board, and we'll hand them a nice, neat stack of this is where we left off. The board has not been formally seated yet. The last commissioner meeting, I was present and had a resolution approved to form the board. So tomorrow night, the commissioners, they're going to do a series of 15 interviews, and then they'll seat a board. I'm not sure of the exact membership yet, so we'll just have to see what they do. Two people I know immediately that I can announce today. You might know. So Ken and Nancy are both going to be the planning board's representatives on this ad hoc group. Now, the way this will work is the group, it's not being done infinitely. This group does have a sunset deadline of approximately roughly the end of the year. The way it works is the planning staff will be there as subject matter experts, and then the group will work probably through some type of facilitation means. They'll start studying and breaking into pieces all the work we've done with the goal of finding some compromise. The compromise that they find, we'll just have to see what that looks like. I will tell you the membership is going to be made up of various folks, whether it be realtors, whether it be affordable housing advocates, neighborhood representatives, businesses that work with short-term rentals. That's what will have to be seen in terms of because you're going to have some very different opinions, obviously, in the group. So when that's done, we will bring you their findings, and then we will go from there. Any other questions that I can answer about this group?
When do we anticipate recommendations coming forward, or is that TBD?
It's TBD for now. And the reason I say that is because it is written in the resolution. If anyone has that pulled up, I believe the sunset date is November 30th. So that should give you now here's what could happen though. The group could look at it, study it, ask more time. That's not a given if they're going to be approved for more time. I'd have to take that message to the commissioners. So that's why I was a little hesitant to give an exact date. So maybe potentially best bet, bring you something by the end of the year. Of course, the end of the year we get into the holidays. So.
And we don't have any sense of when these meetings are going to take place or
We-
how often.
We do. We're still trying to work with the logistics. You all as planning board members are not required to be there, and you have two people obviously for representation, and staff will be there. We'll be there as subject matter experts, but the facilitator will likely do a lot of the work with the group. 200 College Street, first floor, meetings of approximately twice a month of duration of 2 hours, I want to say. There might be a month where there might be a request to have, say, a third meeting. But since we don't have the appointments yet, there's still some logistics, and we can regularly report back to you all just a quick, like at the beginning of the meeting, if you'd like.
Okay.
Do we know who has applied for this?
We sure do. And what we could do is, Terry, later today, it's actually posted in a couple different places. I saw Citizen Times listed, I think our communications.
Okay.
Yes. And we can get that to you all in an email later today.
Thank you.
Is it a total of 15 or it's winnowed down
There
to 15?
15 is how many they're going to interview. How many they seat is the question.
The resolution states, think
9 to 11, maybe.
the 7 to 11
7 to 11.
members.
Be 15 applied
15
total, or
No, over 130 applied.
that's
The-
what I was curious.
The commissioners whittled down the applications to interview 15. And then
7 to 11 members with 2 of those already being seated, which would be Nancy and Karen.
so there you have it.
Very good. Appreciate that. Any other questions on that before we move on? Any other announcements? Then I'll go ahead and read the conflict of interest statement for board members on appointed boards from statute 160D-109. Members of appointed boards shall not vote on any advisory or legislative decision regarding a development regulation adopted pursuant to this chapter where the outcome of the matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on the member. An appointed board member shall not vote on any zoning amendment if the landowner of the property subject to a rezoning petition or the applicant for a text amendment is a person with whom the member has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship. And is there anyone here who feels like they have a possible conflict of interest on what we're looking at today?
No.
Okay, very good. And we will have public comment at our regular time today for regular public comment, which will be right after the approval of the minutes. And do I need to read any protocols for that?
No, I think you're fine.
Do we have anybody wanting to make public comment?
Yes.
Oh, okay, very good. And you've signed up to make the public comment. Very good. All right. And that's probably all that needs to be said. And I'll give a few more instructions when we get to that point. Okay. The approval of the agenda for today is the next line of business. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. The roll call. I always leave out something. Thank you. The roll call is next.
Nancy Waldrop,
Here.
Mike Fisher,
Here.
Anthony Coxey,
Here.
Ken Con,
Here.
Tim Collins,
Here,
Jay Marino.
Here.
Thank you.
And now we can approve the agenda for today.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then agenda passes. And now we need to do the approval of the minutes for June the 17th. And a motion for that.
Motion to approve minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then the minutes are approved as submitted. And now it is time for public comment. And if you could come to the stand and tell us your name and the general area of where you live, and we do have a 3-minute time limit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stu Rohrbaugh, and I live in West Asheville, 3 Rogers Place. And I'm really here just to thank the board for their time that they served and they put in, and just make a comment. I've been a land use planner in Western North Carolina for 30 years. I retired earlier this year. I've worked in 3 different communities, 3 different counties, and either served as a staff member or volunteered on multiple comprehensive plans. And my comment tonight is just to say thank you for the work you do on the comprehensive plan. I have worked for communities and saw where comprehensive plans were sat on the shelf after they were adopted. And I am very proud to see the work that not just this board, but our staff works on to bring forth implementation of our comprehensive plan, just as the item that you're looking at today. It's incremental, it's small, it's tiny, but it's important to move those plans forward. And I just wanted to, again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
And we thank you. That's nice to hear. We appreciate it. So I guess that brings us to our business for today, which is a comprehensive plan implementation, discussion of CPH 2023-00044, Module 2 and Submodule A, permitted use text amendment of cryptocurrency, data centers, and government protection services. And this is an introduction and review of proposed regulations.
except it's CPH 2024, not 3.
Is it wrong on the agenda?
Yeah, that's what's on the agenda. It's, Oh, well, on the little iPad, it's right. On the printed copy I'm reading, excuse me. That's where the
Sorry to be
typo is.
picky.
No,
That's
thank
okay.
you for doing that.
Yeah. All right, so it is ZPH 2024-00044, module 2, submodule A.
Is it 00044 or 20?
24.
Oh, okay. Then two typos. Thank
It's
you.
just the case type was wrong entirely. Thanks for pointing that out. We'll get it fixed.
Okay. So we know what it is. All right.
Do you want to start, Nate?
Sure. All right. So again, Nathan Pennington, I just want to just provide some institutional knowledge first to introduce this topic. Also want to introduce a special guest here today. We have with us Vance Bell. He's from our IT department, and Vance is instrumental with this organization. We work with him a lot on public safety towers. These are the towers that were used by whether it be the State Highway Patrol, Buncombe County Sheriff, EMS. These are critical and important to communicating across the county. We have a number of them. Vance is his specialty is working in that arena as well as data centers. And he can tell you once we get into the meat of this topic, how Buncombe County operates two data centers and how it's critical to our economy, the functionality of the organization as a whole, and how those relate to today's topic. Really, I'm going to get us started just by giving you a quick history. We are in the second active moratorium. The first moratorium we had in place for cryptocurrency was put in place when we were still finishing up with the comprehensive plan, making sure that got adopted. And basically what that did is the moratorium obviously has the effect of putting something on hold until you can study it further and look at regulations. We have studied these items, and that's why we are bringing to you today a separation of data centers and cryptocurrency itself. Jillian and staff will get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. Like I said, we have Vance here as well, but we are currently under another active moratorium. We're about 3 months into it, and it lasts for a year. And that should give us adequate time to get through what we're proposing today. Here for any additional questions. And Vance is sitting right back there with the backpack.
So today we're going to talk about cryptocurrency data centers, but also government protection services. And that would be like fire stations, ambulance stations, police stations. So this is the agenda, purpose, background, the equity analysis, what the comprehensive plan says about it, other jurisdiction examples, and then the proposed text amendment. So the purpose of this proposed text amendment is to address cryptocurrency mining operations, data centers, and government protection services. So just a little background, Nate told you about the moratoriums on that the commissioners passed on cryptocurrency mining. And just to let you know, data centers are defined as a group of computer servers used for remote storage, processing, or distribution of data. They do not include crypto mining facilities. And by adding data centers into the zoning ordinance, it's all part of that push in the comprehensive plan to update and modernize the zoning ordinance. Government protection services. And this has come up because a new fire station is proposed to be built in an area that currently does not permit it. So, and for the safety of county visitors and residents, government protection services needs to be permitted in all zoning districts. This includes fire stations, police stations, E911 centers, and EMS stations. Regarding the equity analysis, crypto mining, just to remember, it's often cited on cheap land. There are negative impacts on the environment and surrounding communities. There's a potential to exacerbate, can't say that word, environmental justice issues, and no jobs are created or products or services offered locally. Centers, on the other hand, support commerce, research, government services, and economy. Permitted in commercial zoning districts will allow for minimal impacts to residential and rural communities. And then government protective services, allowing use in all districts, removes one barrier for all communities to have increased level of service. So what does the comp plan say about these proposed text amendments? The growth, equity, and conservation, Action 6 supports the protection of agricultural forest lands, environmentally sensitive areas in rural communities. The Farms, Forest, and Environment section, Policy 2, preserve Buncombe County's natural heritage. Policy 3, promote ecosystem enhancement. Health and recreation. Policy 5, utilize environmental protection and land conservation to promote health. And infrastructure and energy. Policy 2, plan for the long-term sustainability of public services. And Action 2, implement policies around new development and redevelopment that advance decarbonization and sustainability goals. So what are other jurisdictions doing for cryptocurrency and data centers? For cryptocurrency, McDowell County is a total ban on cryptocurrency mining. Waynesville is a total ban on cryptocurrency mining. Greenville, North Carolina, a 3,400-foot setback from residences and schools, limits hours of operations from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., limits allowed noise decibels. Haywood County, North Carolina, 750-foot setback from neighboring property lines, and Clay County, North Carolina, they have a total ban. And then data center regulation examples, Prince William County, Virginia, is a data center overlay district. There are design standards. And Chandler, Arizona, allowed as part of a planned area development and must comply with standards. So this is a summary of the proposed text amendments. We want to add the definition of cryptocurrency mining operations to the definitions section, add the definition of data centers to the definition section, add government protective services to the permitted use table to allow it as a use by right in all zoning districts, add data centers, non-cryptocurrency to the permitted use table, and permit in the CS, EMP, PS, and AI zoning districts. And just to remind you guys, AI is Airport Industrial District with special requirements.
Not artificial intelligence.
Not artificial intelligence. We named it first. That's all I have to say.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. Add special requirement standards for data centers to include sound study, facility enclosures, certificate of noise level, setback requirements from residential properties and structures, and generator use hours of operations and screening requirements. And again, that's special requirements for data centers. And just to remind you guys about special requirements, it's a set of standards in the ordinance that when they come in for permitting for their site plan permit, we make sure they meet those requirements. Add cryptocurrency mining to permitted use table and prohibit it in all zoning districts. And just to let you know, it's not on here, but for public safety, it would be allowed in all districts. Again, that allowing to site a police station or a fire station wherever you need. So I'll let Vance come up and he can answer more technical questions you have about data centers that there's no way I can answer.
Certainly try. Happy to try. So yeah, we operate two data centers in the county currently. And I'm very interested in what questions you guys have that I might be able to help clear up for you.
My first question would be, could you just describe the two data centers that already exist or are in operation?
From a footprint perspective or?
Just an overview, just so
Yeah,
we
and
know
where
what
are
those
they?
are. Yeah, and what are they doing and what's their purpose?
So we try, well, yeah, there's one located downtown and there's one located at our 911 data center. Or excuse me, our 911 processing center
Which is where?
in Irwin.
Okay.
Yeah, they're honestly our data centers, given the way technology has changed over the past 15 years, It's gone, our data center has currently gone down to about a third of its original size, just because of the way things have gone with computing, data center computing. You can get things much more dense than you used to be able to do before. So we're currently utilizing about a third of the size we normally were using about 10, 15 years ago, which is a really good thing. Actually, I've got a big chart on in our main data center right now that we have commissioners come through fairly often, new commissioners, things like that. They want to see the data centers. And the virtualization that we're currently utilizing, there's some charts I have in there on purpose that demonstrate how much carbon footprint this is, that less space is utilizing, less power, things like that. Our backup data center is also much smaller than it used to be. I would say it can be contained. I don't know if you guys know what a server rack looks like, but I would say that our personal stuff that's in that room could exist in two racks. So fairly small footprint from that perspective, very, very dense in terms of what it can do. And that's obviously a lot different than a crypto mining facility. I was trying to think of an analogy or a metaphor. I don't know, I have 4 kids, so I've been to Chuck E. Cheese a lot. A data center would be like a Chuck E. Cheese on a Wednesday with a few kids in there, and a bit mining facility would be like a Chuck E. Cheese on a Saturday where every kid's having a birthday. It's kind of the difference, right? A lot of energy in there, a lot of things.
And they're a lot larger, right?
A lot of
Physically
things
larger?
going on. I'm sorry?
Physically larger as well, a lot?
Typically, because they are, yes, because they're trying to do as much as they possibly can in that facility, but everything is running at 100% and just being slammed, if that makes sense.
I'm going to ask a little question about the differences between, my understanding is data centers in general, generally they're pretty good. They can create jobs. They're generally smaller. And as you said, crypto can be larger, much more environmental impact, but we must be on the same wavelength, because I was searching for an analogy and I said, I have a car and I use it to go get groceries, but I could also use it to rob a bank. You can take a data center, as I understand it, and at some point convert it to crypto mining or AI mining, which also is very intensive and environmentally impactful. I hate using that word that way, but if we are approving data centers in commercial zones with special permits and stuff, is there a way to prevent somebody saying, well, you know, we actually would make more money if we convert this? And then we've got a problem, because we kind of, the horse is already out of the barn.
Just to note for you guys, the proposed definition of a data center specifically prohibits cryptocurrency mining operations.
Okay, so we would wind up having to police that?
So the answer is, when we pass a regulation, we've got to enforce the regulation. As we know with short-term rentals, regulation is not the easiest thing in the world. So it's kind of like drugs are illegal in most instances, but cops regularly have to deal with infractions. Will there be infractions? Probably. There's infractions with just about every regulation that we have. So we're kind of in uncharted territory here. This is something fairly new to folks that they're trying to regulate. So if we ran across a situation where we did find a violation, we'd have to go through our normal notice of violation process and work with our legal department on what that looks like.
I guess technically I would be curious if there is a way, without invading privacy or stepping on company rights, to monitor the level of activity, which could signal that it's being used for something other than normal data operations.
It's a really good question. I kind of was having that same thought process. How would you know, or how would you try to figure that out, right? And I'm assuming that if somebody were to convert an existing data center into a Bitcoin mining facility, I would imagine that their power usage is going to increase significantly. Yeah. The next question is, okay, how do you figure that out? And I'm assuming that unless they already have really, really substantial electrical services in that location, they're probably going to be filing for a permit to increase electrical needs. And so
absolutely,
I know that's a possibility, but that's a really good question. That was the first thought that came to my mind. There may be a tie-in with permits, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Water usage would also dramatically increase.
So you would, now that requires a lot of cross coordination with a lot of our suppliers, like for instance, Asheville Water, permits and inspections here. One other way that we regularly run across violations is people let us know. So I will say that the community is very good at policing itself. So I think there are multiple levels here. It's just one of those things where it's a new regulation, and sometimes you don't understand all the implications of a new regulation until you adopt it and have to deal with it in real world scenarios.
Well, and wouldn't the noise level increase so much that it's obvious?
Potentially, we are putting some standards in place for data centers that help to mitigate that. I will tell you that what we've run across in our research, especially across Western North Carolina, is that people have sort of done these things on the cheap. So there was a situation that was reported by CNN where they actually took cargo containers, placed all of the computing equipment. I really wouldn't recommend shoving that kind of expensive equipment into a cargo container unless you had some real Mac Daddy HVAC units. And that's probably what happened out there. That's why the noise was so great in those situations. But what we're recommending is that, the fully enclosed building. So yeah, I mean, I think it's been interesting, our research.
One thought that came to my mind too was, and I was talking to Brandon just a little bit, the cost of property in Buncombe County and Asheville is obviously higher than most places. And it's probably not gonna be in their best interest to do it in somewhere like downtown or somewhere like that. So I don't know, anything's possible, but anybody that's doing this is probably doing it for the financial gain, and they're probably gonna do that calculus and figure out that that's not smart. So they're gonna try to go probably somewhere a little further out where, number one, there's not gonna be those same electrical facilities that they're gonna need, and there's not gonna be the data connectivity likely that they would need as well. So I don't know. That's something that, like I said, there may be some tie-ins with permits and some other things that you could.
There might also be fewer neighbors to complain.
Sure.
So I guess two things occur to me. One is probably unrealistic, but ahead of the fact, is it worth having a conversation with water and with the power suppliers to say, how can you help us monitor this? But the other thing, just looking into the future, the big people, the Googles and the Amazons and so forth, have a lot of money, and they are willing to spend a lot of money to acquire land. And it's very hard in some areas to say, no, we don't want your billions of dollars, and we'd rather keep it. But I think the temptation is going to present itself at some point. We still have a lot of fairly remote land in the county. And yes, the infrastructure may not exist, but I wouldn't underestimate what they're willing to do, because between crypto and AI, they have the need to do a lot of processing, and they'll find places to put it.
Sure. But to be clear to this group, cryptocurrency, we are looking at a prohibition, but we are not for data centers. So data centers would include the AI component, all the e-commerce.
Are there regulations being proposed for the energy consumption? I read an article where just AI computing alone could wipe out all the gains in electrical use reduction.
Sure, but that's not something that I think we need to get into or propose for regulation purposes. I think that could open up a whole lot of legal implications that it's just not something I would recommend at this point. Maybe in the future, we could look at that. I know that the county has goals for overall carbon reduction, but I think we need to stick within our 160D police powers or the enabling legislation that we have. I think that could be begging for a potential bill from Raleigh as well.
Does Duke Power do anything with that? Or do they have concerns, or do they have active initiatives?
Well, that's the thing about working with some of our partner agencies. For instance, we have zero control over if Asheville wants to grant water for a facility. We have zero control over Duke Energy giving someone power. So I think that would be a very large mountain to climb.
Thank you.
Can I just ask for a point of clarification? So we are trying to address crypto. But
Correct.
Since I'm pretty sure this is true. AI is just as intensive in terms of usage as crypto, and maybe more so. And as the big tech companies who have not made a lot of money out of crypto, as I understand it, are now looking to monetize AI. Are you saying that we shouldn't be touching AI because Raleigh might get itchy about that, where they wouldn't get itchy about crypto? Did I misunderstand?
I don't recommend, I'm not making a professional recommendation to look at any regulation surrounding AI. I think that we are trying to do this in baby steps. I think the idea today is I've been specifically tasked with looking at cryptocurrency, but also we need to be careful not to impact the world of data centers, which places like the National Climatic Data Center, who uses AI. This is where we have to be. It's a very slippery slope here because these very important research agencies are now utilizing the function too. There's been talk about all the different components in government service that would benefit from AI. I think it can save time. It can be a tool to help us, but also I think it can be to our detriment. And I think a lot of those things are going to have to be studied and looked at further before we look at any type of regulation surrounding AI. That would be my professional recommendation.
Would you expect the commissioners to issue a moratorium on that?
No, I don't. I've not heard anything to that effect. And again, I think it's so new that I think people are still trying to study the benefits versus the risks. And that's probably a worthy conversation to have before you look at any kind of regulation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, and data centers are necessary things. I mean, we have to have data centers. But the crypto mining is not something we have to have.
That is correct. We have the US dollar, which is a digital currency, and e-commerce. These are the things that run our society, and that's why it's important to separate out the two.
Could I ask one question? You described the two data centers here in Buncombe County, and you made note of the one in Urban Hills. I'm an Asheville firefighter formerly, so I'm familiar with that one. From a IT point of view, you have one server, and then you have one rack of servers, and then you have two racks of servers. At what point, when you keep adding racks and servers, do you reach a point where it's like, okay, this is a big operation in your point of view, sir?
Are you asking at what point it could become a concern in terms of scale? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, where is scale right now as far as IT is concerned? One rack, two racks, 100 racks, 1,000 racks?
Our IT or just in general? I'm
In
sorry.
general, I'm sorry.
That's
Or
a
a data
real-
center.
Yeah, so I guess one thing you have to keep in mind too is there's a lot of folks that are doing what's called co-location. There's a place here in Asheville in Technology Park where WLOS is. And I believe they changed their name. I want to say it's a Medion, but I can't remember specifically. But they do co-location. So for example, if the county decided, you know what, we need to get rid of the building where our data center is, we're either going to have to move it or do some co-location. You can engage with those types of folks to basically take those racks that we were talking about and put them in their facility where they have power, they have HVAC, they have generator backups, they have all those things that you might need to be a SOX compliant data center. So it's hard for me to say exactly, but from a specific company perspective in terms of scale, because you have these co-location data centers, if that makes sense. So data centers, you could go to the smallest place you can think of, and they're probably going to call a closet like this one over here their data center, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
it's really a loose term when it comes to that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know if that helped, but
No, it does. It's just, technology moves so fast. It's good to hear from somebody working in the industry for what you see.
it's a very loose term when it comes. Like I'm thinking my data center, and it's like a rack with two servers, right? When you can turn around and go to another location where it's much larger. So, and I think the biggest distinction here is what is that data center doing? And our data center is serving applications and things like that to the government services that we provide. Whereas obviously crypto mining is single focused, it's doing that one thing and consuming. It's running at 100 all the time.
Is there a
Pegged out.
typical size of these, like in people's basements? I'm not super familiar with cryptocurrency. I don't understand it. I mean, I understand mining is just computers. I don't know what they're doing. They're just running and running and running.
Right.
I mean, are these done by big corporations? Are these people in their basements?
So what we're looking at, we're not trying to go after folks with an individual cottage industry in their basement, nor do I think we can. These are large scale factory level entire warehouse with just racks and racks and racks, racks, crunching numbers all the time, solving the different matrices and the formulas to be awarded this Bitcoin. That's what we are trying to regulate here, and that's what the other communities had in mind when they put together their prohibition as well.
One of the typical crypto mining currency facilities that I see, I equate them like a storage facility. Like they're everywhere, right? You drive around, you see these storage facilities behind the gate, they're behind the fences and things like that. It's usually something from a size perspective, the ones that I've seen and researched and looked into, typically about that size.
Can I ask another question?
With a lot more air conditioning.
In our proposal here on the number 6, it says add special requirements for data centers to include a sound study, kind of understand what that is. Facility enclosure, not 100% certain facility enclosure would be for a data center. Setback requirements for a data center. Can you talk a little bit about those requirements and what they look like and how they protect their surrounding community from noise and the impacts of a data center?
Sure, and I may want to defer to Nathan on this, but in general, data centers aren't generating that type of noise and the conditions where you would need those types of setbacks. In general, if you think about before we had cryptocurrency, I think a lot of these things are coming up because of the cryptocurrency mining that people are doing, if that makes sense, and they're calling them data centers.
Why does the one say, for instance, in Macon County, why is it that you can hear that? What's the difference?
Yeah, so they have, like you said, HVACs that are running constantly because these things are running so fast and so hot, trying to crunch those numbers that it's a constant fight to get those, to keep them cool enough to be able to run. I'll give you an example. Our data center at one point, we have redundant ACs, and if one kicks out, the other one obviously kicks right back on, and there was a problem at one point with the transfer of that. And within, I'd say 10 minutes, the temperature rose in that room from like what normally is like 68 or something like that. It jumped to 85, like it was, I mean, and it would have kept going until the things automatically start shutting down because the heat is so important to the computing. They have to get rid of it. If that makes sense. But I definitely need to defer to Nate.
Yeah, the one you're referring to specifically was the one that was just sort of placed on a lot in these sort of like semi-open cargo containers. A lot of people complain about constant whirring. The standards we looked at for data centers are not inconsistent with. We run across, as you can imagine, numerous complaints about numerous things. So we had an industry.
No.
No, I mean, whether it be the clinking bottles at Coca-Cola, yes, we've had that complaint, or whether it be one of our industries that manufactures, it's a specialized textile, different wipes and diapers and things like that. They run these almost like large cotton candy type machines that are spinning this fabric, and there was complaints about the whirring, I mean, anytime you have gears going, anytime you have numerous HVAC units, we're just looking at some basic mitigation, and we're also looking at putting them where it's appropriate in the commercial districts. So that's kind of where a flavor for where those kind of standards come from. And we benchmark with other communities. Go ahead, Acme.
So this facility enclosure, does take the sound from an AC unit and kind of put a wall in front of it so sound travels up and not outward? Is that what you're doing with the facility enclosure?
That's a great question. I'm not sure what they're referring to with the facility enclosure, to be honest with you.
Let me ask staff real quick. You got a sound standard in here anyway? Okay, so basically what that does is it leaves it open for the applicant to work with a design professional to come up with some type of barrier, enclosure, some type of mitigation, whether it be foam in between walls, anything to dampen the sort of sound. And then we receive basically a study where they've taken some microphones and make sure that it meets the decibel rating. Is that fair?
That's correct. It's also about the visual screening of the equipment as well. I don't know if you've ever seen the utility station. Sometimes they can start to look like that in terms of the way that equipment is structured. So it's both visual, but more importantly, the noise.
Yeah.
And there's, maybe jumping ahead, I apologize, but part of this text amendment talks about fire stations, police stations, public services. Is there any thought on the part of staff to include those same kinds of sound study, facility enclosure? I'm familiar with some fire stations where they are put into an enclosure to kind of reduce ambient sound noise to surrounding neighborhoods. And being a former firefighter, I've traveled all over the US and looked at every kind of fire station, including stations in Canada and Germany and Switzerland and places like that. And you do see some facilities where they're kind of almost walled in like a little bit of fort so that ambient noise goes up and doesn't impact a residential community as much. Are we considering those kind of things for design for fire stations?
Not design and operation standards at this time for government protective services. We found a pretty sizable gap in our ordinance that didn't allow for protective services. And am I reading that right, Steph? 3 different districts? And you want protection in every single district. Now, we could go back and look at some design and operation standards. I've never actually been asked that, but I will say that Asheville's most recent station on, is that Broadway? Yeah. That'd be a conversation I'd like to have with them to see if what they might have employed, because that one's obviously adjacent to a neighborhood. To your point.
Winston-Salem has 2 fire stations in residential communities. I've trained at them.
Okay.
And they're pretty close in proximity to residential houses. One of the stations, they went back and retrofitted it with some enclosures and some barriers, natural barriers. They did some additional design work, I think, later on. I don't know for 100% certain. I just know from my visits it changed over time. So I'm just curious if those kinds of standards are also considered for governmental facilities as well.
Thank you.
Can you bring something back on that?
Yes, I can. I can't give you a timeline on when I might be able to do that, but I've written it down and I'll look into it further.
And I do want to be really clear, since I got this mic going, I'm a former firefighter and I totally support public safety buildings in any and all districts, but I do think design considerations are important.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Can somebody give me a reasonable, how loud is 55 decibels?
There is actually a really good chart.
In here?
No, we can pull it up real easy and it just gives icons of vacuum cleaner, lawnmower.
Fire truck.
Shannon or someone maybe can do that for us real quick. It's available widely on the internet.
What do I Google?
Looking for a graphic.
Yeah, there's like a InfoCon or whatever it's called, info
Decibel level chart.
decibel level chart.
I think we're looking at 70 to 90 decibels for crypto mining typically.
And what's typical for a data
55
center?
is what they've got for data centers.
55.
According to my Google, 55 is a moderate sound level that's similar to the sound of a normal conversation or background music. That's not very loud.
Have moderate rainfall.
Yeah.
And then 70 is like.
70 to
that.
80 is an alarm clock, washing machine, dishwasher, or a restaurant.
A helicopter's 100, as well. A trombone is 110. Police siren 120, jet engine 130, fireworks 140.
Wow.
And then, of course, you're going to have charts that discredit other charts or say something different than the charts. You know, we've heard studies that conflict other studies before, haven't we?
But it's the ongoing.
Yes, it's
Level.
constant and
Right.
it can increase. It can be like almost like an oscilloscope.
That's the average.
And if you don't have constant, like a noise machine at night, that's when it becomes most annoying, or some of those pitch changes as well. So to Vance's point about the Chuck E. Cheese on a Saturday, when do you want to go to Chuck E. Cheese? Never. But I'm just saying.
On a Saturday.
Well,
Go on a Wednesday morning and like, yeah, you're going in there. It's good.
Still hard.
Well,
Hard
and-
pass
Yeah, I
for
hear
me
you.
too.
I hear you.
Another point in relation to the sound is in one of the neighborhoods nearby to Asheville, there is a huge major problem within the municipality about pickleball courts because the pickleball court was put in a neighborhood and the people just are constantly hearing that paddle,
It's loud.
the ball hit the paddle. Yeah, and they put up sound barriers, but it doesn't affect the paddle. So
Fun fact about that, we
Yeah.
had a Board of Adjustment case and they were proposing some pickleball courts. They dialed back their amenities and I believe changed that to tennis, but it's that hollow sort of,
and it
you know.
drives the neighbors crazy.
There is somebody who's coming out with a quieter practice pickleball.
Sorry to open up that can of worms. I was just
oh,
curious.
no.
I
mean,
the can of worms.
We're doing some things that
can
are
of
a little
pickleballs.
different, but just remember today is discussion only to introduce the topic. Let us know of anything that you see, which we've talked about a couple of things, but mainly we just need to get some measures in place to, obviously allow emergency services, obviously to address this ongoing moratorium, and obviously to make sure that we're not doing anything that's detrimental to commerce and activities of the government. And then we'll bring this back to you for public hearing. And staff, I don't know when the next available time to do that is.
The September meeting, what's the September meeting, Terry?
16, I think.
I'd like to make a comment if I don't mind.
Go for it.
I play trombone. I rode fire truck, so I'm in that 110, 120 decibel experience level. And when you play trombone, it's a directional instrument.
Right.
The trombone is incredibly loud because it has a long projection to a short bell. And nobody wants to sit in front of the trombone player or the tuba player. So sound is a really big deal. I've also, as an attorney, had an opportunity to try a case about sound transmission between units in a mall. And the question was the sound design correct or was the installation incorrect? So we had to actually put up, there's some really good engineers here in the Asheville-Buncombe area that do sound transmission. I used one of them as an expert witness in my case. And I've actually had a lot of experience as an attorney looking at sound transmission where you have an operation in one building that is dramatically impacting people in the other side of the wall or whatever. So sound is a big problem, and you spend so much money in Buncombe County to purchase a home, and then somebody moves in and you got this constant rumble of something out there. So I'm glad to see that Buncombe County is working on this module, and I applaud the staff, and I would ask you to bring back as much information as you can, because this is a quality of life thing. And if you have this constant rumble over here and now you're adding your own noise machine trying to be able to sleep at night, the whole volume of the community is just climbing and climbing and climbing. And having done some work on it as an attorney, it's a big issue. I'm also familiar with issues with firefighters losing their hearing from air horns and sirens mounted in trucks in the wrong locations. There's also been some issues with sirens that were spec'd out at one thing but manufactured at another level, and it caused hearing loss. So it is a big deal, and it is impactful to the community and to citizens. And so I look forward to hearing staff recommendations on all three of these areas, including governmental facilities, because they operate 24/7. Fire stations are required by federal law to have big generators so that in the event of a hurricane or something, the station can run. Those generators have to be tested weekly. And when a fire station generator kicks on, it is a loud thing. The one at headquarters woke everybody up. And so there's a lot of issues with sound, and I'm glad to see staff taking this on, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Let me talk to Ryan Cole and Taylor in our emergency services. But you're right. So just 46 Valley Street where my office is. And it scares me sometimes when this happens, but at the jail, the generator kicks on. You're just, you're
Very
it's
loud.
very jarring.
And they're necessary, but they're loud. And so,
Yeah.
Design on the front end could do a lot to help the community on the back end. Because once you
Okay.
put one of those in, you're stuck with it.
Are there any known cryptocurrency mining operations in the county?
No, there's not. It's just one of those where if you wanted a guarantee, you'd have to put something in place like we're suggesting. There obviously was enough community concern about it for the commissioners to enact 2 moratoriums. So here we are today, and I know that the Sierra Club has been active on this. Mountain True has definitely looked into this matter. Again, I think our land costs are really the driver here. And I will tell you, when I was in Iceland, there are some very significant ones there. But what is it? It's always cool, and they have geothermal. So there's 2. There's also one of the largest Alcoa aluminum smelters, and smelters need massive energy. So just to illustrate a point there, I know Canada and countries like that are contending more with this matter, rather than us, that we lack the flat developable land. Our utilities are somewhat inexpensive. They're not the cheapest in the United States, and it was a very hot summer. So some of the things we have working against us in terms of these type of facilities.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to the commissioners for pursuing this, as well as all the work the staff has put into it, because crypto mining may not be something that we foresee happening right here, although because of the abundant water, I think it's a definite possibility. And we do have some very rural areas which make it appealing. But in the areas a little to the west of us where it has happened,
Yes.
it's caused major disruptions in their
Cherokee
community,
County,
to
right?
the point where people have moved from there because it's been such a noise issue. And I just appreciate the fact that we're getting in front of all that, because I think we'd certainly rather deal with it before we have those kinds of issues than after.
So we were hoping to bring this for public hearing on September 16th. Do you feel like the text amendment is ready for a public hearing and vote, or do you want to discuss it further, or?
It looks good to me. I won't be here on September the 16th,
Okay.
but other than that, I'm happy with hearing whenever you have it.
Yeah, I think if
Okay.
staff's ready to recommend it, then I'm
Okay.
willing to look at it.
Sure, and we're going to get you a little more information. We can always go back to that as well. But I think given the importance, I think we've got a fire station that really needs to
Site.
get into a site. I think this one's pretty important, and we'd love to move it on into September. I will tell you one further note on cryptocurrency. Some states, I think, are having buyer's remorse. I think they adopted some model legislation, and that sort of backfired on them. It basically allowed more cryptocurrency mining. I did read an article in Arkansas of where one then located next to a elected official's house, and so they are looking at some altered legislation. So
It's all been-
there you go.
A couple of questions. If we're going to have this at the September meeting, because there are really 3 things going on: data center, emergency services. Are we going to present all 3?
Correct.
Right. And of the 3, I would imagine that crypto would be the most possibly contentious or attract the most commentary.
I had some pushback from a group representing the cryptocurrency industry during the moratorium hearings.
But not a lot of residents and business.
I don't know that you're going to find a large local contingency. There might have been a couple of people that lived here that had some interest, but I think preserving the individual minds themselves that people do at their own computers at homes might allay that. But sure, there's industry, obviously, that would probably push back.
So the second question is, has Raleigh staked out a position vis-a-vis our ability to
No.
create an ordinance?
No, and that's why you've had some pretty rural counties that we put up there that have adopted all McDowell County specifically, just all out prohibition. And our research shows they just serve no public good.
Okay. Last thing, Vance, thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Anything else? If not, then I think we're ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?